Howdy folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am your host, The Mighty Bjorn, and today for you I have a Gunner Heat PC guide video, and what I'll be doing is going over the gunnery systems of the T55A, and mostly it's actually the gunnery optic I'll be going over. It really doesn't have a system per se, as it doesn't have a laser rangefinder and it doesn't have a ballistics computer. But let's dive on in here. I'll talk about the sight, how to use the sight, and basically how to range your targets, what the different scales mean, things of that nature. Let's start off with how to get your ranging, and this is probably one of the harder things about using the sight. So what you have here is you have in the bottom right corner is a ranging scale. Essentially what you want to do is you want your target to fill from the bottom line there, which is ground level, to the top, or more or less to one of the upside down T's. Now, a 2.7 meter target is supposed to fit in between those lines based on its range. And then you have the range once it fills that gap, and then you know what to set your ranging to. Now, the numbers are in hundreds of meters. So 16 is 1,600 meters, 24 is 2,400 meters, and so on. All that being said, it's still guesswork, and what it comes down to is you got to know the armored vehicles you're engaging, because you don't necessarily know what's 2.7 meters, let alone how accurate that really is. Basically, it comes down to you have to know how tall the vehicles are. The other thing you have to guess is if you're engaging a hull down vehicle, you obviously only need to fill half the space to get an accurate, fairly accurate ranging. Now, what you have is you have to actually then set the sight yourself. And as you can see, there's multiple lines. Let me show you this. There's multiple columns with multiple lines. The ranging is in hundreds of meters. So 2 is 200 meters, 8 is 800 meters, 20 is 2,000 meters, so on. And each column is for a different type of ammo. Starting from left to right, you have your HE, you have your high armor-piercing high explosive, your heat, your coaxial machine gun, and this right now is the only tank with a coaxial machine gun sight, and Sabo. Sabo is the most forgiving of the rounds, by the way, and that's mostly because it has a very flat trajectory. So even if your range really isn't on the money, you're more than likely still going to hit your target, or at least get in with a range zone. And then what happens is once you fire your gun, you can adjust your sight. You either can raise it up or down yourself, or you can change your ranging up or down, once again by hitting the page up, page down keys. And then to dump your ranging and re-zero your gunnery sight, all you have to do is hit control, page down, and it re-zeros everything out. That being said, this is really good for shooting at targets that are not moving. I don't want to say really good. It's not as good as a laser rangefinder, folks, or and adding a ballistics computer in there. That being said, it's better than absolutely nothing, and it's definitely probably better than what the troops had in World War II. That being said, it's not good for firing at targets on the move, and you're definitely not going to want to be on the move yourself when firing the main gun. Now, there is some tricks to shooting at targets on the move, and I will explain that here in a little bit. Just firing some more rounds, just showing you how the sight works. Like I said, it's all page up, page down. You just got to know what each of the vertical columns means and what those different numbers means. And that's because it's got to do with the different weights and velocities of the rounds. High explosive being heavier than, say, Sabo, doesn't have the velocity that Sabo ammo has. All right, let's move on to the next part here. Now, what I'm going to show you here is the sight illumination. This is for when you got low light conditions or you got a dark backdrop. Now, nothing changes in the optic itself. The optic still works exactly the same. But by hitting the I key, you can illuminate your sight. So that way you can see against a dark backdrop. There's also another thing I forgot to point out about the sight a bit ago, is that this actually has a zoom. Default is ×3. And then if you scroll up, it's ×7, and then obviously scroll back down and it goes back to ×3. It's great for when you're engaging targets that are far away. But I'm just showing you here right now that this sight acts exactly identical to the regular sight when it's not illuminated. It's the same sight generally. It's just everything becomes illuminated, a bit easier to see. Now, it's not so easy to see if you have a really bright backdrop. Now, I'm turning it to night here. Going to show you how this optic works. And honestly, I am not a pro at this optic. I really don't know how to range this optic. And essentially what I've picked up is it's really just guesswork. You just got to more or less know. Now, this is, from what I understand, it is a ×5.5 optic. I might be mistaken. It only might be a ×5 optic. But this is your night sight. And what you have to do is you have to hit T, which switches to your infrared optic. And then you have to hit N, which turns on your infrared searchlight. You need to have both. You got to have a searchlight and an optic. If you have your regular daytime optic, the optic you just saw a bit ago on, you will not see the infrared light of a searchlight. Now, that being said, you can use this without your searchlight being on. And there's also some limitations to it. One thing to point out is it only has a range of roughly 1,000 meters. That's a visible range. Once you get out past that, your visibility pretty much becomes non-existent. It's really good up close. And another problem with this optic is any dust and dirt in the air gets picked up by the infrared. So when firing your main gun, it can actually completely blind the sight because of all the dust and the dirt in the air actually blocking the light. The light actually picks that up. So then it shows up visible in your sight. Now, I'm just showing you here that I can see the T72. And as you can see, the T72 has the infrared searchlight as well. That's because they both have the same searchlight, even though I do believe they both have different optical lenses, but they're both Luna 2 searchlights. Now, that's actually important because what I'm showing you here is I don't have, or sorry, I did have the searchlight on for the T72. As you can see, I can see the light from the T55A. Now, when I turn the searchlight on, I could actually see it a little bit better, but it's just to show you that with the lens, I can see the light, with or without the searchlight. So you can use someone else's light as long as you got an infrared an infrared optic yourself. Now I'm going to do a bit of driving here, and I'm going to talk about firing at targets on the move, and I also want to talk a little bit about Gunner Heat PC itself. Let's start with talking about Gunner Heat PC for a bit. This is a game in development, guys. It's still got a long way to go for sure. They're still adding in more tanks, more missions, maps, scenarios, etc. They're working on a lot of different stuff for this, but it's definitely a really interesting looking tank game. And the one thing I'll give it is it's closer to a user-friendly simulator. It's not a full sim, which is kind of hard to explain. It kind of crosses the line between arcade and simulator, leaning more towards the simulator. So it's, what I want to say is it's more friendly than, say, Steel Beast. But it's also more sim than, say, War Thunder or World of Tanks, which, well, World of Tanks is an arcade game, so never mind. So, yeah, it's kind of shooting in the middle of Steel Beast and War Thunder They're definitely showing good quality with everything that they do, and they've really done an amazing job of trying to translate everything realistic about these tanks and put them into the game. They're not worried about game balance, they're worried about the vehicles being as realistic as possible. Such as right now, my personal favorite is the M1 IP, and except for in areas of shooting certain areas at the T-72A, it's pretty much the king of the battlefield right now, and that's at the time of this recording. There's still better vehicles coming up the pipe. So down below, I will have links for their Patreon and their website. Check it out, get more information. You can also join the Discord, their Discord, and ask questions, or you can even ask questions below. Action Scripter does check my videos out, and sometimes he'll post comments and things of that nature on my videos to, you know, basically answer questions. All right, so let's dive on in here on shooting at targets on the move. And here's the trick. You just got to lead your target. The blue arrow is the target's movement direction. Essentially, I have to guess the range and the speed and how long it's going to take for my round to travel there. The red circle is my point of aim. So basically, I'm using that line to aim. The yellow circle is my point of impact. Basically, by the time the round gets down that far range, I'm hoping the vehicle will be at my point of impact. So there you go. It's not really hard. It's just basic leading your target. But I figure I better put it out there for people who don't know. Anyway, folks, I believe that covers everything with the T-55A gunnery systems. This will probably be something I will revisit down the road. And I also know there is plans to add other T-55s as well, which might throw some things in the bunch here, because the different T-55s have different types of systems. I believe it's the T-55AM actually has a laser rangefinder and acts more like the current T-72A. Please don't quote me on that, though. Won't know until it actually gets in game. Anyway, folks, that is all I have for you. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hopefully you will find this video useful. And have yourself a wonderful day.